All right, everybody, welcome back. We got another Zoom call. This is Mike to Mike. That's what I call my show, Mike to Mike. You like that?
No.
I've got my friend Johnny Crane. Johnny, when did we meet, man? 2007?
2007. It's been a couple years.
It's been 13 years, bro.
13 years now. Yeah. I was just looking at the calendar. 10 years ago, I moved back to Mississippi. And I remember saying bye to you in Alma. That was tough. And that's been 10 years ago since I've been gone.
Dude, that's nuts,
crazy.
man. That's nuts. I can't believe it went by so fast. So Johnny came to the college that I worked at as a student, and then we worked in weekend outreach ministry together. And so we'd go pick up kids from Cicero, Illinois on a bus and take them to church in Indiana. And we did that for 3 years until he finished school early in 3 years. And then he headed back down to Mississippi where he's from. So he actually came up from Mississippi to the north to learn how to read because they don't have
Exactly.
You know, I wanted to ask you something.
We were using emojis a long time ago because we couldn't read. No.
I wanted to ask you something. Now, as a child, you spent some time in Romania because your parents served as missionaries in Romania. Now, were you born over there or were you born stateside?
I was born stateside in Norfolk, big Navy base there. And so my dad was pastoring, and we kind of went to the nearest hospital. And so that's where I was born. And so my dad's been in ministry my whole life. And so Virginia was where I was born, but North Carolina is where he was pastoring. And then Romania and a year in Greece. And then Mississippi is where we moved to. And I pretty much grew up there the rest of my life.
So there's this story. I remember one time you were talking about how your mom is like the best cook in the world. Now, at this time, you gotta understand, I'm always skeptical. At this time, I have not eaten anything that she had cooked or prepared. I'm like, okay, whatever. You're just being like a good, loyal son. And then you said something crazy. You're like, when we were in Romania, I wanted PopTarts. And my mom made homemade PopTarts. And I'm like, shut up. Like, stop making stuff up, all right?
Hey,
you already got the missionary cred. You don't need to make up any more stuff, all right?
Hey, can I just say, shut up is the number one phrase you've said to me in our friendship. You've said that to me more than it's like a term of endearment to us. Shut up, Johnny. Yeah, but the Michael.
I know all the parents are going to watch this and they're going to hate it. They're going to be like, oh.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible. Yeah.
Thanks, youth pastor.
Don't say shut up. That's terrible. Yeah.
So then you call your mom and you're like, hey, Brother Mike doesn't believe that you made homemade Pop-Tarts. So then I have to have this awkward conversation with your mother about it. And I'm like, okay. Like, I don't want to call her out.
Well, I handed you the phone. You had to talk to my mom. Yeah.
Right. What am I going to do and say, no, you're a liar, Mrs. Crane?
And she's got that super deep Southern accent, you know, that sounds like some sweet Southern lady. You can't be mad at her when she's talking to you on the phone.
No. So then anyways, like years later, you're getting ordained. Either you're getting ordained or I'm down there to preach. I don't remember which one.
You preach. Yeah, you came down to preach for me.
I came down to preach for you guys. So then I went down there, and then your mom, sure enough, she cooks this. And by the way, your mom's amazing. She's got a cookbook out. I saw that. I'm going to buy it, bro. I'm going to buy it, man. So your mom, she's an amazing cook. And then sure enough, for dessert, she makes like homemade Pop-Tarts, you know? It was like
two different flavors.
It was the most like Southern hospitality in your face moment.
Bless your heart. Here's a Pop-Tart.
Bless your heart. You just get them store-bought Pop-Tarts, poor soul.
Yeah, but it made you so mad. Not that I, like you didn't believe it, but I called my mom, and you made more fun of me. I called my mom in front of all the guys. like handed you the phone and like, hey,
tattletale. You're an adult, and you're like, well, I'm telling my mom.
Well, I so from your side, I understand because everybody says their mom cooks good, right? Like everybody does.
Yes.
And when I hear people say my mom's a great cook, like instantly in the back of my mind, I'm like, your mom can't cook like my mom. Like,
hey, I've been in that situation when someone's like, oh, my mom's a great cook. Then you eat their food and like, dude, somebody lied to you. Somebody lied to you, man.
Yeah, somebody lied to you. Yeah, that's the same people that tell you like off-brand tastes the same. No, no, that does not. There's a difference between Lucky Charms and Lucky Stars. There's a big difference, you know?
What's
Yeah.
and Dr. Thunder? Yeah,
Dr.
Dr.
Thunder.
Thunder is no good, man. That stuff is
No, it is not the same, you know.
so Johnny and I, we've been through a lot. We did a lot of we worked together in ministry and all that. And one time I had this idea of like, hey, let's do like this pro wrestling match at church. And so and like I had this amazing, like super, like this is my spiritual gift. You know, like other people can teach, other people have hospitality and love and charity, all that stuff. And me, I have this incredible gift to get people to do ridiculous things and be excited about it. So we got all these people. We had this big tag team match. I don't know if this is the first. We did one or two. You did two of them with me, right?
I did two of them with you, yeah.
And you broke my rib, I think, on the second one.
Yeah. No, it was the first one. And it was the first show. We did two shows in one day. And so I broke your rib. Now
and I had to do another match.
It was my fault. Okay. I'll publicly acknowledge that. But in my defense, you were supposed to help me on that move. Like I went to pick you up and you were not, you didn't jump high enough. I'm not strong enough. And so when I came down, well, like 5 minutes later, was not 5 minutes. This is a couple seconds later. You had me in the corner, this choreographed, routine, and you were supposed to like be smacking me, and then you were really smacking me. I'm like, "Ow, man! What's wrong with you?"
Mad, you broke my rib. Oh, it hurt. And then I remember we went to the locker room, and I'm like breathing hard. I'm like, I'm hurting. And we went out. And so the second one, every time you would do something to me, it like, I could not breathe. I felt like I was going to die, but the show must go on.
It made it more realistic. But the thing that I, some other guys will talk about, well, I did a WrestleMania with Brother Mike. I'm like, look, you weren't there for the first one. Like I helped duct tape mattresses together. Okay.
We took a boxing ring, which is not a wrestling ring. It's not meant to take bumps on. It's not meant, you're not meant to fall on it. So we had to like put mattresses and plywood over the mattresses, and we tape it down and we tighten down the canvas. And the mat
would not stay on it. Oh man,
that was hilarious, man. But it worked. It worked. We had a good time. At least we had a good time. I don't know about whoever watched it.
The first time we were teammates, and then we got somehow in the year between, we got mad at each other and we split up.
Yeah.
And Larry was an adult that came to our church, and he was a special needs. And Larry came up to me afterwards like, Brother John, I did not know you were a professional wrestler.
He was really into it.
And then the next year he's like, why are you, Brother Mike, mad at each other, man? Why are you mad?
I remember a couple years just after you left, I did another one, and I had my nieces and nephews. They were all really little, like in between like 6 and like 3. And so I was like, hey, bring them down so they can watch me. But I was the bad guy in that one, and I lost. And so then they were waiting for me in the locker room. When I went there, they were all crying. They were like, are you okay? Like I had to console them and stuff. And then later, Evie was like, you should be good. You shouldn't be bad. That's why you lost, because you're bad, It's funny, man. All right, man. So, I mean, we can go on and on. We have a lot of history together. It's crazy because you were only at the college for 3 years, but man, we squeezed a lot of crazy times into that 3 years, man. We had a good time.
My favorite was, I got to tell this one because my favorite was on ministry one weekend. It was Christmas, and like everybody was home. Like nobody else was there. All the workers are gone. It's me, you, and no kid. Who's going to come on Christmas morning, right? Like it literally was like Christmas on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And in church work, this is just the worst day. Like
it's a tough day.
It's like Mother's Day, time change, all on one day. It's terrible. And so we had my car, and we're just picking up like 2 kids. That was it. Like two stops, Jose and Andreas and Elizabeth. That was it.
Yep.
And we're outside, and I'm in the driver's door, and I see the snowplow coming up behind me. So I, smart. I'm from Mississippi, but I'm not that dumb. So I stay in the car. Brother Mike was like right outside the door. And when the plow came, it just shoved all this snow in your
And it
face.
was not fresh snow. It was all
No.
that black, nasty. It all flies up and it's just like, boom, like right on my face. And I remember I didn't even move. I just stood there like I'm so disappointed. Like it was a perfect moment for what we were doing, you know? It was like such a bad morning. And I was just like, and you're just like laughing. And I'm like, shut up, Johnny. Just shut up, man.
You got in the car and you didn't let me say anything for a while. We just drove to the church. That was it.
All right, man. So I'm calling my friends. I'm trying to get in touch with people. And I've got a youth group, got about 100 teenagers that come every single Sunday. You know, when we're usually having church, they're all stuck at home right now with the quarantine and all that. What kind of advice do you have for them as far as, you know, whatever, dealing with the quarantine or just general life, or what do you have for them, Pastor Crane?
You know, it's something I've been thinking about. This is on my mind when I'm talking to my teenagers. I'm in a smaller church. I'm in rural Indiana. Moved back a couple years ago, 3 years. And so
Time
I've been
out real
trying
quick. I forgot to mention that you are you're the lead pastor of this church. You served as an
So I
assistant
worked for my dad
but now
for
you're
7 years in Mississippi. And then 3 years ago, God called us back to Indiana. And we've been here. And God's really blessed. We're in Blackford County, Hartford City. So it's in between Fort Wayne and Indianapolis. So it's kind of the east side of the state. And I'm looking at my window. I can see a cornfield right now. And then if there was a window on that side of the office, it's another cornfield. Like I'm surrounded by farms. So a little bit different than up there
That's
in
scary,
Northwest
man.
Indiana,
That
Illinois.
creeps me out.
Creepers, big time. You
Yeah,
know?
I couldn't do it.
But so we don't have that big of a youth group. We got about 15 kids that come every service, and then about 20 to 35 kids that will come to our public school outreaches that we do. And so, you know, but been talking to them, and really the biggest thing I've been trying to get across to young people in all this is that this is a big event, like coronavirus, COVID-19. Like this is just, it's something really big. It's something that's going to change society, and you know we're going to come out the other side doing things differently than we've ever done before. But this isn't the first time something has happened on a mass scale. Like my grandfather, so my grandpa, my dad's dad, his picture you could kind of see right there. That's him going the wrong way, mirrored image. There you go.
Yeah.
And he grew up. He was born in 1926, and so he was older when he had my dad. And but he grew up in the Great Depression, and the Great Depression affected everyone. I mean, everybody, just like this is. I mean, everybody right now is at home. Everybody's routine has changed, and it was this very similar. And he grew up poor, real poor, and his whole life was affected by that. I mean, my grandpa, we would make fun.
You froze. Give me a second.
50 cents for every dollar he ever made. And he's still living. He's down in Mississippi with my parents, but he learned that lesson. Hey, we don't have anything, so when God blesses me with something, I'm going to hold on to it in case something bad happens again. And it affected the rest of his life. And so there's going to be some things on the other side that's going to affect, and I hope that we all come out different for the better. You know, I heard someone say just this morning, what we concentrate on or what we focus on grows bigger. So if we want to focus on the negative, like the bad, you know, and there's plenty of bad. I mean, we could name 100 bad things from this, like instantly. I mean, thinking about young people, the first thing that pops in my mind is all the seniors of this year. You know, they missed out on so much stuff. You know, it's heartbreaking because of the memories I have. And I don't really quite understand why people are posting pictures of the graduation.
I was going to say, let me cheer you up. I know you can't go to your graduation, so I'm going to cheer you up by showing you my graduation. That would be like if your wedding got canceled and it was like, I know you just broke up with your fiance. I'm going to show you my wedding pictures. That should encourage you.
Yeah, I had a friend describe it as taking a homeless person by your house and showing them all the details of your house. You know, it's like it's not encouraging. You know, it's the opposite. So stop this trend on Facebook. But I think people always want to show people what they look like when they were skinny and pretty. You know, that's just what it is. They just want to remind people. But beside the point, So there's a lot of bad, and you can dwell on it, but all dwelling on the bad does is make it bigger. And really, God is working. God is doing something, and I've seen our church, our teenagers, be strengthened from all this. I've got teenagers that are desiring more to read the Bible, to pray. The basic
That's
stuff.
awesome.
And that's encouraging. Hey, they're going through a hard time, and I've heard this phrase so many times, but character is not made in hard times; it's just revealed. But if you're finding, okay, I'll be honest, a moment of just sincerity and just letting you know an area I felt like the first week of this, like my screen time notification on my iPhone, it was crazy. It's like 6.5
Oh yeah,
hours
man.
on screen time. I'm like, oh, a day. I'm like, how in the world did I watch my phone that long? And instantly, there's some things I got to change. I can't just be sitting around. I got to do some things.
It took
And if
it
I,
took me like 2 or 3 weeks to kind of like, okay, you gotta be normal, man. Like you can't like I'd go home from I would still come to the office at the church and nobody else came the first week. Everyone was working from home. We were trying to figure it out. I would come in
yeah,
and then I would go home and I would play PlayStation till midnight, 1 in the morning every night. Like I was like in junior high. I was like, what in the world, man? I did that for a while and it's like, okay, you gotta be productive. Yeah.
yeah, and it takes discipline. It takes discipline. Like even with studying for sermons. So I'm still preaching 3 sermons a week, and a few like lessons here or there, and we're getting the teenagers together, different things. But like it takes discipline to sit down and do your work. Like it takes discipline when you've got all this free time. I'm gonna sit down and do my schoolwork. I'm gonna sit down and read a book. Like I'm gonna do something productive and not just waste time.
Hmm.
Uh, and you want it like to. This is the greatest opportunity. When else we've I've always said to my wife, well, when I have time, I'll do this. Like I'm having all this
Now
time.
you have time.
Now do it. And so take advantage of this. Be different when we come out from it, and be aware of yourself in areas that you're failing, and say, hey, I need to make myself better in this area.
This is a great time to improve because you don't
Yeah,
have an audience in front of you. You're
yeah,
not trying to be a better person and seeing your friends the next day and you're like all nervous about, how are they going to
yeah,
respond because I'm trying to do this or that. It's like you have all the freedom in the world to do it right now, man. Yeah.
yeah, and do it. And so come out from this better. It would be a shame, like if we missed this opportunity, because maybe in our lifetime we won't have. Who knows what the future holds? But why waste this chance to really do something? So like go to college or go to do extra classes, and uh, you know, get a hobby or read, improve yourself, because you may not have this chance again. And when life starts rolling, which it looks like it could be in a couple weeks and maybe a month still, who knows? But it's going to pick up and it's going to just keep on rolling. And you won't have time to do the things.
You're going to be
That
wishing, a lot of people are going to look back and they're going to wish that they made more of their time, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
especially those who aren't, their families haven't been directly affected by it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so my friend tells us, and I don't really know how true this story is. You always hear stories about people investing
I
or
was
missed
a I
opportunity.
was a Navy SEAL, but I gave my life to Jesus. I
Yeah.
My name isn't on any of the records because I was in all these black ops that no one knows about. But it's true.
I,
Trust me, it's true. Okay.
I almost pulled the trigger on Osama bin Laden, but I didn't want to.
But I was
Like I
like,
let
no, thou shalt
you
not
do it.
kill. So I told the other guy, do it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But a friend of mine, he tells a story about how, like in the, long, I think the 70s or 80s, he had opportunity to invest in Apple and he didn't. And at that time, like the stocks weren't crazy low, but it was still not the Apple, what Apple is today.
Yeah.
And he could have invested. One of the 3 owners did. He sold his shares. He had 10% of the Apple company and just dropped it. I think today it would be like billions of dollars what those 10% would be. And he sold it for like $8 grand. Just crazy. But this friend of mine, And so looking back, we can say, man, I missed this opportunity, or I wish I would have invested in this, or I wish I would have. And there'll be a lot of people make a lot of money right now investing, and when other people are scared or opting out.
Yeah.
And we can look back in 20 years and say, man, I wish I could have done that. Or I was right there. Like I could have invested in Apple and be a billionaire today. And I think my life is more valuable. God says our soul is, what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? So to God, our soul, our life is more valuable than Apple. And I would hate to say in 2 years, man, I wish I'd have taken advantage of that time when I had it, when it was calm, and to be with my kids and to spend more time with them and be with my wife. I wish I'd have taken advantage. And the investment you can make in your life is going to pay bigger dividends than more valuable dividends than you could if you were investing in the stock market. So,
I've had like, excuse me, I've had like 3 or 4 moments in my life, like just like super hard circumstances, like incredibly tough situations. And every time I've hit one of those, like there's always like, you always go through all this stuff. You go through like the struggle of it and the emotional toll and figuring it out, then kind of getting back to like a little bit of normalcy. But I've always taken that time to say, okay, what's really important right now? Like to reassess how I'm living my life, and then to say, okay, but am I actually living for all the things that are truly important? And I think that this is another one of those situations. It's just like, okay, we have to look at our life, and it's just, what are we doing with this gift that God has given us? We have a limited amount of time in this experience. And for whatever reason, God thinks this experience is super crazy. That's why we're down here on earth. He thinks it's great. He thinks it's important. And so, I really try to push that to my teenagers. Just like, dude, your life is so important. Make the most of it. Don't just, and I want them to have fun. I'm not against them having fun. I'm not against them watching a show here and there and playing some games and all that. I'm not against any of that stuff. But it's just, we live for that stuff now. We live for entertainment. And I feel like it's such a distraction. It's really like killing a lot of good parts of our life.
Yeah. Well, and this is a big one too. And so, those hard times, I mean, me and you, one thing I value about our relationship, like you've been able to kind of be a part of some of my bad times. And, from a distance, we've been able to be sounding boards one for another. And so you can, I've had some rough times, and you've been able to kind of help me through some of those. And I don't know all the details of all your bad times, but I can remember some of your life, and we're talking.
You were with me. Yeah.
So it's some rough stuff, but I think it's so important to have some people around you that are making you better. Like I remember in high school, I had some friends that brought me down, and I made some really dumb decisions because of them. And trying to, just peer pressure, just normal stuff that everybody deals with. But, right now, like it's a great time to step away from somebody that's toxic in your life. I mean, you're not really allowed to be around anyone anyway. And so,
so you have a built-in excuse. Do you want to go hang out? No, because the world's ending. So I can't really hang out with you. And then when everything's back together, like, hey, you want to hang out? No, you just, I'm sorry, man. I don't remember who you were before the pandemic. I'm sorry. Just, I lost my memory.
I was trying to kill the zombies in my yard, and I couldn't answer your phone call. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I didn't text you. Sorry, I left you on red because I was out there killing zombies. My bad.
Yeah, hey, zombies would be good at this point, right? Like I'd much rather a zombie than a virus that I can't see, Zombies are slow.
Man, don't get me started down that path. Do not. So every one of the calls I start with, usually it's like whoever's on the other end is really trying to make sure I get fired as being a youth pastor. They usually bring up something crazy. So you want me to talk about zombies? I'm like, oh God.
No, yeah.
Thanks, parents. It's his fault. It's the pastor's fault over there.
Yes, it's my lack of spirituality.
So I think one thing with you I've noticed, and I was thinking about this today about you, is like, I feel like you've always been good at like trying to find mentors in different areas. So like me and you were like super tight when you were in college. And I felt like I could speak a lot into your personal life, but then you had other people that you talk to about other areas, because I don't have all of the answers for everything. And so
Yeah.
I felt like you always did a good job of having like like the Bible says, there's safety in a multitude of counselors. And you always, I felt like, you had this other person you talked to, this other pastor you talked to. You constantly had like a lot of people. You didn't just like, this is the one person that's going to, you know,
Yeah.
lead me
And I
to
think that's
success.
big too. Yeah. Because I mean, people, even with good intentions, like even a pastor that loves you doesn't have all the answers. And I don't know what's best for my people at every time, every turn.
Mm.
And so God is, my dad taught me that. And I think, I've always prayed, God, who do I need to talk to? I mean, I was about coming pastor. I talked to you, I talked to several people, but there was one pastor that had like worked for his dad for several years, and they were on good terms like me and my dad were. I didn't
Mm.
leave my church because of bad things. I left because God was moving me. And so I called him and talked to him, and he really helped me say, hey, this is some things you can do to keep this relationship with your dad right. And I'm thankful for that. And then I had some people that had pastored in small towns that I talked to and say, hey, what do I do? And so I always want to talk to somebody that's been what I'm going through, that's been through it, and has come through successfully. You can always talk to people that had bad experiences, and I think you can learn. Everybody can teach you something, but I want to ask advice from somebody that did it and came out looking better or came out victorious. I guess you could say that word. And I've always searched. My wife makes fun of me sometimes because like I'll call like 6 or 7 people, but she also takes confidence knowing that I'm not just making a whim decision. I'm trying
Yeah.
to make
Well,
sure.
I feel like this today.
Yeah,
All right, here
yeah,
we go. It's like, oh no, Yeah. No, I
yeah,
hear you. I think yeah, I think I think a lot of when you're a teenager, a lot of teenagers, it's kind of like you don't want to talk to adults. Your friend group, your peer group becomes exceedingly more important to you, like more important than any
oh,
other time
absolutely.
before. Like you actually care what they think. You guys are all trying to figure out life together. You're actually starting to think more critically and more, intelligently and with more layers and depth. And so you're going through this with them. But I think a lot of teenagers don't use the resource of the adults in their life, their
Yeah,
parents, their pastors, the laymen in their church who are good, godly volunteers, the coaches at school, good people around them that can, give them some advice and steer them in the right way. And I just, I think that I wish that my teenagers would pick up on that in this conversation. Like, okay, who is it in my life? Who are the 4 or 5, you know, wise, godly adults who are a little further than me that I can get
yeah.
some wisdom from?
Well, yeah. Hey, or someone that's been, their mom and dad's divorced. Hey, go find a guy that's 35 that his dad left him when he was a teenager, and he's got a wife and he's got kids and
And
he's
he's
got a
not
good marriage.
he's not bitter. He might
Yeah,
have
go
his
find him.
struggles, but he's not
Yeah,
bitter. He's not angry.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, what'd you do? Or hey, help me. My dad left, and I know your dad left you, and like, what's some things that helped you? Like, ask questions. And I promise you this: every person I've ever talked to, God lets us. The Bible tells us to comfort one another, wherewith with the comfort we've been given. So God lets me go through something to
Dude, my
help
sister
people.
and I were just talking about that verse the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and one thing I found is when I go to someone and they've been through something that I'm going through right now, it's like they're excited to talk to me because they know what it's like. And so I've never seen someone like embarrass me or put me down when I've come to them genuinely
Mm-mm.
asking them for help, because they're like, hey, if you go to a guy that's, their dad left them, he's not going to, make fun of you. Hey, he wants to help you. He wants
Right.
you, you know what I mean? And, he may pull you aside. You may find that you've been able to then connect with someone that's going to help you. Like, I love reading, and every person I've ever read about biography or great man generals or presidents or you name it, doctors, almost every one of them, I've never read a book about one that didn't have someone in their life, whether it was their dad, but most of them came from bad relationships with dad. but they had someone in their life that helped them, that mentor. And some of them had multiple. And what would their life have been like if they wouldn't have had somebody there? And it wouldn't have been the same. And so we need to learn. Wisdom is the proper application of knowledge, but wisdom also implies that I'm learning from others and not just learning the hard way, learning myself. And right? Like,
That's
it's
the
so
worst way to learn, man. I hate
it
that way.
is. And I hate it too, but like I constantly find myself like
Yeah.
learning that way. Like I make mistakes all the time. Like, Johnny, dummy, hey, you know better. Go ask
You
somebody.
could have talked to somebody about that. Right.
Right. And then wisdom though is like Rehoboam. Okay, he went to the older people and then he rejected it, and he went with his peer group.
Yeah. So
And
let me give a little bit of context to that. So because my kids they don't
yeah,
always know every single character. So we talk a lot about King David. Well, he had his son Solomon, and David passes away. Solomon's king for a while. And then he has a son Rehoboam. And Solomon's the wisest man on the earth. Rehoboam's his son. He's got access to all of this knowledge. And, Rehoboam, he goes and talks to all of his dad's advisors, all the people that were with his dad. His friend is like, no, go figure out what our buddies have to say.
yeah,
So then he gets
yeah.
all these dumb ideas and makes everybody angry, because he just
Stupid
got the
advice.
wisdom
The
from.
dumbest advice ever in the history of all mankind.
It's like, I'm the new guy. Let's go over there and just like be horrible to
Well,
him.
like Solomon was wise, but he was a builder. And when you
Right.
build things, you push people. And so the people were tired. They're like, hey, can you give us just a little bit of a break? And his counselors, his guys his age, are like, your dad led them with
Let's
belts.
go.
You need to lead them with scorpions, man. Like you need to be worse. You need to be rough on them. And it's like, you're stupid,
Like,
man.
why?
And
Yeah.
but he had access to it, and he just discarded that. Like he had all that wisdom there. Hey, I can learn from others. I can learn from my dad's mistakes, because even his dad, and a wise man, made mistakes, and he didn't, and he made a terrible mistake, and then the nation was split. They had civil war, and they never were reconciled.
Right.
And there was war between them for hundreds of years because of it, and thousands of people died. So, who knows what will happen through all of this, but I want to be better, and I want to learn from it, and then learn from other people that have been through crazy stuff. The people that I've learned from right now, I think the age group that I'm learning from the most is like Vietnam vets. Those guys, that age group, had been kind of looked over for a long
Okay,
time.
boomer.
Yeah, right. And
The boomer.
but
Yeah.
they've been quiet. They've not really told their stories, and there's a lot of reasons for that I won't go into. But I've been trying to reach out to some in our church, in our community, and they've got a wealth of knowledge. They've been through crazy stuff. They've been through Agent Orange. They've been through napalm. Like they've been through like just crazy stuff. And in the midst of all this, I've been talking to them, and I mean, they came home and they weren't celebrated like World War II. I mean, they came home to people screaming, cussing at them.
Yeah.
They weren't welcome, and they learned through some very tough times. So I just want to be. I want to be someone that's learning. I want to be someone that's trying to get closer to God. I've been trying to read more Bible. I've been trying to do more and not less.
I've been trying to memorize more. That's because it's funny. I'll read a ton and then I'll be like, oh yeah, the Bible says this and this and this. And I have no idea where it's not no idea, but it's like, it's in Corinthians,
Yeah.
I'm really trying to like start nailing down my memorization. And I've been really trying to push my teenagers like, hey, let's memorize the Bible.
Well, there's a good app for that. It's called Versus. And I've used it a lot. It's called Versus. And
Verses.
Versus. And so what it is it's a verse memory game app. And so
That's cool.
It has like 7 or 8 games that you can play per verse. And the more you play it, I mean, the longer you play on one verse, the more it takes away, and you have to rely on memory. And it's really helped me because I struggle with memory. Like I'm not good. Like I can give you like that basic idea of a lot of verses, but if it came down to like quoting it or references, it's terrible. And that's helped me a lot. It's verses, and I share that with my kids, and they're doing well with that. So.
All right, let me shoot some quick questions to you. Just give me quick answers, okay? Who's your favorite besides Jesus? Who's your favorite Bible character and why?
Oh, Jonathan, because
David's friend.
David's friend that should have been king. I think Jonathan was a lot older than David, and Jonathan had every right to be king, but he was humble and he willingly laid down what his plans, what his desires were for God. I don't think there's a better example of that in the Bible than Jonathan saying, God, no, your will, it's going to be done. I'm happy for it. Let me do everything I can to make your will happen, even if it's not for the betterment of me. And I think it's just crazy. And then him and his armor bearer in 1 Samuel 16, that's like one of the best stories in the Bible.
David did the worst replacement job with that. He's like, I lost Jonathan. Hey, Joab, do you want to be my new best friend? It's like, whatever. Joab's horrible.
So bad that he told his son at the end of his life, he's like, hey, go kill Joab.
He's like, you talking about your best? You talk to Uncle Joab, the one who's always there? Like, yeah, kill that guy. Like the first thing.
He's got a lot of skeleton in his closet.
Okay, all right, Dad, if you say so.
And he did. He did like the first thing he did. So, yeah, Jonathan, for that reason, he's kind of like overlooked, but I think he's becoming one of my favorite Bible characters.
All right, what's your go-to Bible verse? What's the Bible verse that kind of like sticks with you through life, or at least or through the season?
Well, 1 Peter 4:11, so it tells us that everything we say should be to the honor and glory of God. Everything we do, and that's kind of centered me the last couple of years, 4 or 5 years. That I want everything. Glorify means to make God look good. So in everything I say, it should make God look good. And everything that I do, it should make God look good. I mean, that's my goal of life. That's what we're created. The book of Revelation said we were created for his pleasure. We were created for God's good. And it's kind of centered me back that I'm not, is every word, am I wasting words or am I saying words that are not bringing God glory? And that's kind of been really the most important verse in my life.
Okay, here's the last one. What's the dumbest thing that you've said while preaching?
Ooh. So many of them. I was recording.
Dude, people do not know how hard it is to preach on a weekly basis, man.
I say thousands of words every week, and it's live. I can't cut it back. I can't edit it out. And so I'll give this one. This one was just a few weeks ago, maybe even 2 weeks ago. So my guy that edits all my sermons and videos and puts it together, I'm leading singing during the quarantine, and so we're pre-recording that portion of the service. And I said turd, like just straight up turd. I was trying to say turn to, and in the middle of saying turn, I was like changing the direct. I was trying to say another word. I can't remember right now.
You wanted to say turd.
So instead of turn, I said turd.
Turd
and
the page.
He sent me his message at like midnight. He's like, Pastor, you said turd in the video. I have said so many though. My wife every week, like she'll say, "Hey Johnny, did you know you said this?" And I'm like, "Don't tell me." Like I just like close my ears. It's like I don't want to know.
Oh, I know.
My dad is worse than me, and I'm becoming more like my dad, like this all the time. So my dad growing up.
Here's what I love about your dad. Your dad, his pulpit voice is his normal voice.
Yes.
Like, how people like my dad, he was the same behind the pulpit as he was at home. No, he isn't. Because your dad isn't like, but your dad, the way he preaches is the way he acts in real life, man.
Yeah. And my dad is the most sincere person. Like he is real all the time. Like he's always, it's not for sure. It's not show. It's not fake. Like that's
your parents were so nice to me, man. Like I really appreciated both. I really appreciate both of them. They were just both really genuine, cool people.
When they love you, man, they love you, and they will love you for life. So my dad, though, he puts his foot in his mouth is the term that we've always said so many times. And I remember when I was real little, he was preaching, and I don't remember why, but he was giving an illustration of an ugly woman. And he begins to describe, and I'm not going to today describe how he described it, but I kid you not, I promise you, in the church, in the sanctuary, there was a first-time visitor that matched his description perfectly. I'm talking about perfectly. You ever seen that meme of the reporter that's talking and there's the cartoon
The guy
behind him,
behind it.
and he's like there's a murder. I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
something
yeah.
different. But it's like he's on the loose and it's a picture of himself. And this is what my dad's doing. He's like, man, this
Oh,
woman, she was so ugly, and it's like there's shit, and she was a visitor, and then he tried to fix it. So he tried to make it better. He realized like
stop.
halfway
This is
in.
getting
No, no,
horrible.
no, no. This part's not as bad, but it's kind of bad. And so my mom, she's just shaking her head. And but that woman may have been ugly, but and it was a hair color, and I won't go into all those details. But he said if you've ever seen a woman with this color hair, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And my mom's sitting there, and she doesn't have that color hair. And so then my mom gets mad. So in trying to fix it, he made it worse for the woman he's going to go
Oh,
home with.
that's
And
funny,
all
man.
this is during a sermon. It's live.
The sermon
Not
is
even
off the track. It's off the rails. It's done. It's done by that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah.
Hey, I want to tell you a story about your grandpa, and then we'll let you go. So,
Okay.
so your grandpa served in World War II. He served on the
Yeah.
USS Indianapolis. Anybody knows the history of that? Crazy, crazy story. His dad's got a crazy, crazy, that's a crazy experience. But, which you played your dad. They made a
Yeah.
movie. So I got a friend who's a movie star. So
I'm
Johnny,
on Netflix. I really am on Netflix.
yeah, they made a movie about the USS Indianapolis,
It's
and Johnny got to play his
disclaimer.
grandpa.
We're going downwards again because the movie's rated R. So I kind of have to give a disclaimer, but it's for war violence. So man, you're going to get fired, brother Mike. You're
I
gonna
know.
get
I'm
fired.
so torched. So, anyways,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
talking to your grandpa when I'm down there, and I was like, my dad was in the Navy. He's like, oh, good. He said, where was he stationed at? I said, Mare Island in California, in Vallejo, California. And he goes, oh, that's where that's where he was stationed before he left to go to the Pacific Theater.
yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, I got in so much trouble when I was a kid. And then your grandpa, man, he just like smiles. He's like, me too. And I was dying laughing. It was like the most sly smile. He's just like, neat. It's so
And
funny.
what makes that so great is because you knew him as Pastor Crane. He was a
Yeah.
pastor for 60 years, but he had to go back and think about him as an 18-year-old Navy boy and really getting in some trouble. And so I've asked him
Hey,
about some of those things and he wouldn't tell us. So
the best Christians I know are all sailors.
there. I wouldn't go there.
I
We
can
had a
say it
Navy
with a
base
straight
long
face.
No, no. The answer is no. Oh man.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Johnny, for doing this with us, and I appreciate it. I hope that my teenagers are encouraged. I hope you guys really stop and think about your life and how important it is. It's important to us, and I want it to be just as important to you. And I hope that you take these words of wisdom seriously. Is
Hey,
find
brother
some
Mike,
good.
can I just say one more thing?
You can.
About between both of us. At one point, it's hard to believe, but like Mike was a teenager, and I was just a teenager in my youth group. And if you'd have gone back, I graduated in 2007, so it's 13 years this year. And if you go back 15 years ago, you would not say that guy's going to be a pastor of a church. Like,
Right.
you wouldn't. And so don't look at your life now or say, hey, God can't use me, or I'm doomed to be a bad Christian the rest of my life. Like, if all of us were stuck in what we were as 16 or 17, like
Oh my
we
goodness.
wouldn't be here either. And God can take you, and even with the mistakes you're making now, God can take those and work them to good. Romans 8:28 is true for every teenager. And the bad things in my life I did, like, I wish that I wouldn't have done it, but I wouldn't go back and change it because it's brought so much good and allowed me to help
God's
others
used
that have
it.
gone through the same thing. Yeah,
God's used it.
absolutely.
Yeah, God's
Yeah.
used it. I
So,
that's the one thing I try to make. I want my teenagers to know that, like, I believe in them. Like, I look at that, man. I'm like, man, they're so much sharper than when I was when I was their age.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not the
Yeah.
youth pastor who's like, when I was 15, I had the Bible
Yeah.
memorized. I'm like, dude, I was an idiot when I was
Yeah.
15. And so I look at
And the
my
potential,
teenagers,
yeah.
and they're like,
Yeah.
they're just way past me. I think they're incredible. So So I think I appreciate you saying that for them. They get down on themselves a lot. A lot of my kids get down on themselves, and I'm like, dude, you guys are awesome. You need to chill.
Yeah, and the Bible says it's unwise to compare yourself to somebody else. You know, like
Especially
you're
like you're
not
saying,
me.
like don't compare your 15-year-old self you to, you know, I'm gonna be 40 next year. Like I've had a few decades in this thing now. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I just turned 30. Yeah, I'm a young guy.
You're still a baby. You're still a baby.
But still, don't compare 15-year-old to you to 30-year-old Bonnie and 40-year-old Mike or Pastor Freddie. You know,
Don't say it like that.
We weren't always
40-year-old
that
Mike.
way.
Shut up, man. I know how you're saying it. Shut up.
I know. I'm saying like, hey, they wouldn't notice it. It would have just gone
Don't compare
silently.
yourself
And
to
they'd
ancient
have
Mike.
jabbed you.
He's like Yoda. He's so old and experienced. Just don't. You know, you're like
You're not
maybe
Yoda.
Anakin.
Don't say you're Yoda. You're not Yoda. You're like
I'm Obi-Wan.
you're
I'll be
you're
Obi-Wan.
Hans. You'd be Hans. You know,
I'm
you're Han
Han.
Solo.
I'm totally Han Solo, man.
You're the old crazy dude living on the backside of the desert.
All right, man.
Hey,
we're out of here.
Go.
So
we go way down. Yeah.
thank you so much,
Mike.
Johnny. Thank you, teenagers. I hope you guys get something out of this. Just ignore our stupidity and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But really, thank you. Thank you so much. We got to do this again, Johnny. We'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.